my opening statement. I think I was asked, maybe on KJR with Softy and Jackson there, was the season a success? I think other members have asked me that question. I've asked myself that question. Was 2024 a success? And what I would tell you, the answer is no, because we're pragmatic people. Our jobs are wins and losses. Our jobs are winning trophies. But certainly along the way, there were many successes within this year of 2024. And, you know, when I looked at it, I actually did watch the game, the final. It was painful a little bit, but congratulations to the Galaxy. But we were one goal, you know, maybe 6 minutes from overtime, you know, of pushing that team harder than they got pushed in the playoffs. So we were close. I mean, we were 9 minutes away from maybe hosting an MLS Cup. If you added overtime in there, penalty kicks, we were good at penalty kicks this year in the playoffs. So you just never know. But it's pro sports, and you can't win all the time. You know, the semifinal of the Open Cup, quarterfinal of Leagues Cup, some of those successes, those certainly are out there. But I'm probably more proud of these last two. Number one, I would say that the young players that came through for us this year, you know, and I'm going to mention Obed, of course. He's a big story. I think Paul got a lot of juice. He was certainly, you know, good from a GM prospect because he did a lot of good things and he was inexpensive on our roster. You had Jackson Reagan's continued development. Reed, you know, Georgie Manungo. You had some guys that really did a lot of good things. You had good individual performances from Albert and Jordan, career years for those two players. You know, I was very proud. Second thing, I was very proud of the tactical success, the coaching staff, you know, the faith that we had in this particular group of players and turning the season around, because you all know it didn't start very well. But that belief, you know, my confidence in the coaching staff and the players, you know, got us through. And statistically, I know some of you guys look a lot on different websites, but our own internal guys did a lot of data analysis that we do every season, and there were some really good data points in there. Obviously, our defense was very good. The expected goals against, top in the league. Goals against, that's an easy one. You can do the math. But a lot of things that were good. And it also gave us, you know, the things we need to work on. You know, all the analysis that we do in the off season, it gives us things to work on. But those two successes of the young guys and, you know, having belief, I think make this a real good basis or foundation to move forward. I think it really does. Because, look, we all understand that some of the challenges we have with scoring goals, Craig will get more into that. We understand that the opportunity is there with the Club World Cup, the World Cup coming in 2026. I, as a soccer fan, a person of Seattle, can't be more excited about those two big, once-in-a-lifetime, massive opportunities that all of us get a share. I think that, you know, look, I know the draw for the Club World Cup. Someone might ask me, okay, what's my expectation? I mean, those are the three top teams in, you know, different in their respective leagues. My goal, our goal, is to, you know, not build a roster for Club World Cup, but it's to win MLS Cups, which is going to set us up for being competitive in the Club World Cup, because our goal is always about winning trophies. And so the foundation that we've laid, some of the young players, the belief that we have that we're a top MLS club, all of those things, you know, have kind of got me settled into a little bit better mood than I was perhaps 10 days ago. And so I give credit to the players, the staff, the organization, my partner here. We did some good things. But again, you know, overall, would I say the team had success getting a trophy? Well, you guys know the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, 10 days is almost enough time to recover from being disappointed. But in fairness, only one team ends their season on a win. And so there's a lot more of us that deal with this feeling than the other. And as Brian said, we were so close. It's still a bit raw, especially considering we were so close to hosting and being able to invite 70,000 of our fans out to watch us. Puts a little more fire in our belly for next year. But the successes are, as Brian said, there's a lot of success on the season when you break it down into its parts. But ultimately, all those parts are meant to do one thing, and we fell just short of it. So, 10 days, and unfortunately, I also watched the final, which I thought might help the way I felt. It didn't. It's a great team that we lost to. It's a great team that won the MLS Cup this year, but we were one of those, and we were very close. So, overall, a good year. Really proud. As Brian said, he named a lot of people. I mean, for me, working with the coaching staff this year with Brian, some of the challenges we faced early in the season, to be able to turn that around, a lot of credit goes to the people in this building, not just the coaching staff, but the support staff, our medical staff, performance, equipment, all the way through administration. And keeping these guys together. You hear all the stories. Anyone that works in a company knows it's always hard to keep a team together, especially when things aren't going your way. So really, really proud of the turnaround, and really proud of a lot of the players for sticking together too, because that's a big ask when the results aren't going well and everyone's wondering what tomorrow looks like. So a good year overall, but a little bit short, and now we get back on the horse and get to it again.
All right, at this time we have both Giselle Pichardo and Kevin Kay with mics on the sides here. Just a reminder to turn the microphones on. We'll pass them around for people to have questions. We'll start in the center here to Jeremiah. Maz, if you have one as well, that's great. You can go after.
I guess this is for Craig. When does the sort of build for 2025 really start, and is it like when can we start to expect announcements and an actual movement? You've talked a lot about the need to improve the offense.
Yeah, so it's two different questions. The build for 2025 starts the day the summer window closes. I mean, genuinely, my job changes from building for 24 into building for 25. So we've been chasing down a bunch of rabbit holes. We've been several places in the world over the last 3 or 4 months in terms of watching players, meeting with agents, most of which address attacking questions and needs that we believe we have. And so those have all started. In terms of announcements, those, number one, I'm not in control of those. Even if a contract gets done, that's when I hand it off and I say it comes out whenever. I would argue that this room probably knows far before we make any announcement. So you guys have a pretty good network in figuring things out nowadays. In terms of fun rumors and all that, I mean, I'm all for sparking them. So you guys just ask me some leading questions, and I'll get you down a few rabbit holes as well. But no, we'll look to make some moves. Preseason's not that far away. January 11th is around the corner. So, off seasons are a thing of the past in our league. It's more of just a short break. We'll see you guys again in not very long. So. And we'll have some new names for you between now and then. We need to make some deals happen, but some of them might not get done until end of January. So it's hard in timing if you're working internationally. It's got to work for both clubs, and so how close are we on any of them? You guys know me. I try not to get too confident until there's actual signatures. So we're in the middle of 2 or 3 conversations right now, and we'll see if we can get some of them over the finish line.
All right, Maz.
Yeah, Craig. Hello. Sorry. And then Brian can chime in. How does your evaluation process differ? Let's say you lose to LAFC as opposed to losing. To LA Galaxy. Does that then change that in terms of how far you think you are, or?
No. My evaluation of our roster and where we needed to go was done 3 months ago.
Yeah.
I think Brian and I sat down. It's about 3 months ago. We sat down and said, "What does 2025 look like as we get through 24?" So, regardless of if we had not gotten the result 1 week earlier or gotten the result last weekend in an MLS Cup, the decisions had already been made in terms of what we felt the evolution needed to be and where we needed to get stronger. It wasn't a hard riddle, to be fair. When you look at our team over the last 2 seasons, our defensive organization, our defensive statistics are outstanding, overwhelming, to be honest. So, for us, it's more about what are the right attacking pieces to put together and how do we complement the group we have. What I will say is 3 months ago, I think we came up with some good answers. Had we sat down and had that conversation before the summer window, which we did, which is why we targeted certain characteristics and positions, it's changed because we've had some players step up and perform at a much higher level than we anticipated. And they've solidified themselves in attacking roles. I mean, Jordan had a career year in terms of scoring goals and had answered a lot of questions on, we know he's an effective winger. We always know Jordan can go to the wing and be an effective point getting, whether it's assists or goals, mostly goals for Jordan. He can drop a line and be effective. He can also play up top and be effective. So the results don't change the way we think. As Brian said, we're pretty pragmatic. So we had that conversation before we felt the emotions would get involved.
Brian, it's the giving season outside of family. What would you ask Santa for in terms of the Sounders?
To be clear, I'm not Santa.
What a great question, Maz. Look, we need some attacking players. And let's be honest. I mean, again, Albert had a career year. Jordan had a career year. He made big steps as playing as number 9. But, we need some guys that can come in and pitch in and help score some goals and make us a little bit more effective in the final third, the attacking half.
All right, we'll come down the line here to
A head coach asking for goals. Who knew?
Tim, go ahead.
Brian, you're going to have, in the first half of next year, league season, Champions League, I think Open Cup, and Club World Cup. When you're trying to add pieces to it, how significant is your depth going to be especially in the first half before the summer transfer window next year?
It's going to be very critical. I think we did the math, and it was 42 games scheduled so far, and that's not including if we go further in different competitions. So that's where young guys get a chance to blossom. Guys like Paul got a chance because, maybe there was an injury or fixture congestion. We don't want to forget about guys like Josh and Danny Leyva, guys with high potential. We've got some guys coming up from Defiance that are showing some things. But yes, we'll try and put together, and Craig's not going to give you guys too much, but we're looking at some players even within league to give us depth to help us with that fixture congestion.
All right, we'll come.
To be clear, it's 42 games in 8 months. And when you subtract a couple of these competitions blocking out MLS calendar opportunities, it's highly congested. And so you need to build a roster that the coaches are comfortable with, putting guys on the field, different formations, different opportunities, different tactics. So some of the profiles we're looking at, hopefully, give us the opportunity to challenge, for the coaches to look at different ways to approach games as well, because it's a lot of games in a short amount of time.
All right, we'll come down to the front row here. We'll go to Jackson next, and then over to Nico, and then EIC in the back, Jose.
Craig, I wonder if you could just update what are the ongoing conversations with Albert Rusnak like, and also Joao Paulo, and if you could kind of just update on the situation going on there.
Yeah, I mean, look, we love both guys. Albert had a great year. Highly interested in bringing him back. He knows that. We've had good conversations with Albert, so anticipate a good resolution. But again, going back to, it's not done till it's done. So we're still working on some details on that one, but I would anticipate being able to find a good resolution. In terms of João Paulo, we're still evaluating what his ambitions are, what his priorities are, and do they match up with ours. And I know I've had some conversations with his representation. I know Brian has spoken with JP directly, and we're just trying to match those up. And if we find the right resolution there, then, I mean, he's a high character guy. There's absolutely not one critical thing to say about João Paulo other than he's been an amazing sounder. And if we can find the right solution that fits with both what he wants and what we need, then every opportunity to bring him back.
Do you have timelines or deadlines for either of those players?
February 18th is our Champions League.
Yeah.
So right around then.
Nico?
Craig, I mean, along the lines of some of the things you've been asked, I mean, it is 5 tournaments, 6 potential trophies. Beyond depth, how much of, not a need, but an obligation for you to bring a known quantity, not a high-end prospect, not a guy that's in league, but a real big name established to face probably the most transcendent year in franchise history?
I'm only going to push back on one thing because there's a lot of really good players in our league that I think could fit that bill and fill that hole as well. And we're looking all around the world, but we're also looking in league because there are some high-quality players that could be available. So we're making sure to look everywhere, under every stone, if you will. We have a great core of young talent. We've established that over the last multiple years, right? I think this year we had players from our own development, whether they're immediate homegrowns or guys that went to college, came back, or even Nuhu, who came over and went through our development system with Defiance. You know, you look at the core minutes played right now over the course of this season, and I think there's a huge representation, well over 11, 12, 13,000 minutes played. But to your point, in a year like this where we're going to be pursuing multiple trophies, multiple platforms at the most elite levels in our region and now world, we do need to add some proven talent. We need to add guys that come in with experience in high pressure situations that are ready for the challenge, to meet the challenge, and also complement our locker room. You know, we had a really, really tight group this year. I think there's a lot of different ways to build teams. I think this team also helped build itself. We put them in a room and basically said, we're going to solve the tactics. The coaches are going to solve the soccer. You guys go solve the continuity, and they did it. And so we're not interested in disrupting that either. And so it's a unique fit, but to your point, we've got to bring in some guys with experience, and with experience can sometimes come some ego, hopefully, because that's also what drives a top-level athlete.
And one of the encouraging things this year was Obed Vargas's just breakout year. What's the balancing act of knowing that you got a player that's most likely going to get a lot of offers and interest to what if we lose him? What's the contingency plan if he was to go somewhere else that's not here next year?
Yeah, look, Obed had a fantastic year. Obviously, debuting for Mexico doesn't hurt in terms of recognition and exposure. I anticipate Obed's future. It does take him elsewhere in the world before it comes back here, because Obed's the type that will want to come back to Seattle one day. We have no idea what that timeline holds, and frankly, we're not interested in moving Obed this winter. So Obed's going to be with us, and he will be competing with us. He'll be continuing his growth. He's one of the top young players, frankly, in all of North America, not just the U.S. And so he's going to attract a lot of attention over the next 6, 12, 18 months. We'll see what happens. At the end of the day, Obed's going to have a path. We're going to have open communication. But at the beginning of all that is the Sounders. And one of the best things about Obed is his character, his loyalty hasn't changed. In a year of great growth and success, I think his humility has remained, and his priority is still with us right now until it isn't.
All right, we'll go in the back there to Jose. Mike is coming your way.
Craig, do you find the success that you found as a club with minimal spend was detrimental to what it is that you're trying to build for the future? I know there's money coming off your books, but will you be given an extra set of capital to be able to invest?
Yeah, it's an interesting league because capital has to match the rule sets, right? So you only have 3 DP spots, and now you have the 3 U22 spots that are available as well. It's really, really difficult if you look around the league to hit a U22 that comes in, transitions into the league, the culture, the change. Those are young men, and those are big changes in lifestyle. So, the 3 DP spots, I think it's a little easier to get those correct because you're dealing with, in general, a much more mature player, someone who's more mature in their life and ready for those changes. The U22s are a bit more challenging, but we do have the resources to pursue some of these, and so we'll continue to do it. I like to believe we're gonna wait until we believe we get it right. We didn't get to see Pedro enough this year. At the end of the year, we saw a couple really performances that showed us what we thought we were going to get a little more of throughout the year, but injuries happen. So we need to see more from Pedro next year. We need to get him healthy. We need to have him on the field more, and then we need to add where we can add. So we have resources. We're looking within the rule sets of MLS. I think hopefully in the next week, in the next 2 weeks, we'll have a little more clarity on if any rule changes will happen for the 2025 season, or where the cap can open up a little bit. It always seems to be 1 or 2 surprises. This would be a year I'm looking forward to those surprises as opposed to past years. So we do have resources. We're looking, and it's just a matter of sticking within the salary cap confines and improving.
We'll stay back here with Ethan.
Greg, how much is the Club World Cup a recruiting tool when you're talking to prospective players?
It's a recruiting tool. It is one of the competitions we're in. So we're not recruiting players just for a 3-week, 4-week experience. We're recruiting players to be a part of the Sounders, which frankly is competing with the best in our region of the world to try and win a massive trophy that gets us into another Club World Cup, as well as getting back to winning MLS Cups. And I think the biggest recruiting tool is how we finished our season, the way the coaches coached the second half of the year, the way the players performed. I think we were second in points in the last 17 games, only behind Miami. The run in the playoffs is frankly a greater recruiting tool than any one competition because players want to be a part of winning teams. They want to be a part of championship teams. So recruiting to the Sounders isn't hard when you've performed the way we did in the second half of the year, specifically the way we grinded out a result in LAFC, the character we showed there, and then the performance we put on at LA was from a tactical perspective, really a brilliant performance on the road for a second week in a row in a playoff atmosphere. I think that's what players are drawn to, is those moments as opposed to the concepts.
All right, we'll stay in the back row here. We'll go to Felipe next, and then we'll come right here.
Thank you, Alex. In terms of number of games throughout the year, does the number of games affect how you guys build the team? And what do you think of the commissioner of the league is talking about putting less teams in the Leagues Cup, but adding more to the U.S. Open Cup?
Well, again, I think you guys are going to know the answers to that last part before we do in terms of League Cup and Open Cup. I usually learn about those final things when I read one of your articles, so I'll pass on those answers until you guys tell me what those are. But in terms of building the roster, I think one of the big things this offseason is targeting a player or two that allow our staff to approach games with drastically different tactical approaches in terms of being able to go onto the road and present a three center back system with attacking wing backs, or a withdrawn 4-4-2. Can we find someone to partner up top, and really come with a different presentation where we can play with two? These are the challenges that I face in trying to give our coaches the best opportunities to approach their season. And so we'll look at players that have profiles that, frankly, in the attacking half of the field can be partnered, but also can play alone, either wide or up top. And so as we build for all these games, for all these competitions, I think one of the important things when you're building within a salary cap and within a limited roster size is trying to provide as many opportunities for the coaches to approach games differently so that we don't become predictable or force decisions in terms of formation. He may have a different opinion.
We'll come back. Yeah, Mike's right here.
So, Brian, looking at the Club World Cup, where the world is going to have the eyes here in Seattle, how do you define success for us here, for the Sounders?
Well, we'd love to be competitive against, again, Brazilian champion, one of the best teams in Spain, the highest spending team in the world maybe. So, look, we have to be realistic. We want to be competitive. We want to show our Pacific Northwest grit, determination. We're not going to quit. Maybe putting a young player like Obed on display. That might be a success, a small success, and getting a sale because he played well. I think, again, success for me is, look, I appreciate all of the fans, all of our loyal fans, all of the fans that come support the Sounders. But look, there's a subset of fans, the people that watch maybe on a Saturday or Sunday morning, or watch Champions League football on a Wednesday or Thursday. We want to engage those fans as well. We want to make sure that next summer they get a chance to see not just our group, but another group come and play. There'll be 6 competitive matches of some of the world's best teams. And so for a general soccer fan, I think that is exciting as well.
All right, we'll come down here front row to Nico Antu and then start follow-ups beginning with Tim Booth.
Well, first off, congratulations on making the Champions League. I hope both of you had a great Thanksgiving. To build off on the amount of games coming in 2025, Brian, what are some points learned from 2022 to ensure a more successful regular season and the bulk of games having the team struggle a bit in the regular season?
Well, 2022, we obviously had a very good year, in winning the Champions League. But we learn from every season. I mean, each group is different. We had a veteran team that year. We had, a lot of TAM, targeted allocation players, a lot of experience. Albert Cumming maybe was the final piece. Guys like Freddie Montero stepping up when we had some injuries. It was a complete roster, complete team. But again, last year, some of the young guys stepped up, and it just is different. It feels different. Every year we will go in and, the final outcome of what Craig presents to us as a coaching staff, what the players are, then we'll dig in. We'll start doing our jobs. We've already had conversations about what we would like, the wish list, and what is reality and what we get. We will start working in preseason. Craig's right about the flexibility part. I don't think there's going to be dramatic changes within the way we play, but there's going to be certain subtle, very clear differences in maybe how we approach different games, including some of the games against, bigger opponents. Starting off the year with a lot of games will actually give us time to look at certain things. And, by the time Club World Cup comes and the last half of the season, the money part of the season, playoffs and all of that, we should have a good idea what the makeup of our squad is, what the personalities are, and how best to play.
And Craig, if you could give some insight on what your plans are to replace Raul from next year and the year after. Could you give us some spice on at least the country of the player, if it's an international player?
We're looking all over. I mean, honestly, we don't look in one country. I think those days are long gone. In terms of the draw of MLS is much wider, and you see it. You know, with 30 teams, we're the biggest league in the world now in terms of teams. The next couple of years are really exciting. There's a lot of players from around the world that want to come to MLS. A lot of it comes down, as you would imagine, to money, and money talks, and that's where, you know, players love football, but it's a job, and they play it for a salary. And so a lot of times that's where the conversations kind of start and end, because we're still growing as a league. We're still in growth, and we have a little ways to go in terms of competing with those top tier leagues in terms of salary. So, but in terms of scouting, in terms of recruiting, we're kind of all over. You know, there's nothing that's limiting us. We're looking for specific profiles. Like I said, we're looking for players that aren't locked into one position. There's a lot of traditional nines in the world that can play one spot. And I think that profile is attractive if they're going to score 20 goals a year. And if they're not going to score 20 goals a year, that profile is limiting, and it handcuffs you as a group. And we're doing our best to not put our coaches in a situation where they've got a limited position, right? So if we think we can hit a home run on a 20-goal scorer, then we're gonna take the swing.
All right, we'll start our follow-ups here on this row, beginning with Tim and then over to Jeremiah.
So who's at the top of your wish list, Brian? You mentioned the wish list.
Well, I was just trying to answer Maz's question. I mean, look, he just said it. Look, if the right player comes, a number 9, goal-scoring winger, I think there's just roster construction that needs to be in that attacking half of the field. So what we get, we will make the most out of it. We're pretty good at our jobs, and we'll get it right.
Jordan's presented a really nice problem. You know, when you have an 18-goal scorer, you better get better than that if you're going to take the swing. And so it's a really wonderful problem to have. It's a nice issue to talk through because, the beginning of the year, if you would have asked me if Jordan would have 18 goals, I probably would have lost the wager. And that's not a wager against Jordan's character or playing characteristics. It's just we hadn't seen it. We hadn't seen a whole season up there. So credit to him, because now if we're going to bring someone in up top, they better be really, really good. And that's what we're trying to do. I mean, that's the challenge. Always get better than what we've got.
And then, Brian, Pedro had such a up and down season with the injuries. What did you make of what you did see from him? And then was there any sort of message or plan for him for the limited off season of trying to come in maybe a little bit stronger and to be healthier for the season?
Yeah, so incomplete, and that's part of the challenges of the roster construction. We haven't seen the Pedro de la Vega that we know is in there. He showed some bright spots, towards the end of the year. He got better. He is now a better athlete. He understands MLS now. He got sent home with a very specific, tailor-made off-season program where he will come in preseason a better athlete, fitter, and we'll see what happens.
Jeremiah?
Yeah, Brian, this is maybe a little bit more of a philosophical question, but you've been here since before MLS, obviously. But ever since the Sounders got into MLS, there has been this kind of idea that the Club World Cup was this North Star of we want to play competitive games against the biggest clubs in the world. And I don't know if back then there was ever any idea that you guys would actually host these games. But is there on some level, is there almost a inherent promise that was made to kind of the fans, to the whole value proposition of getting here to try to actually be competitive, to not just treat it like we're happy to be here type of situation, but this is what we've been asking for all this time. We have to do our best to perform in it.
I think in my version of the history of soccer in Seattle, did I ever, really narrow it down to say we want to compete against the world's best. Maybe not. I think Garth had mentioned that a bunch of times. I think he was keen on competing in Champions League. Zig, when he was here, always wanted to win in MLS. Any game we took to, Honduras or Costa Rica or wherever we played, we always wanted to compete well because we were the Sounders, and winning games was important regardless of the tournament. I think maybe that's where I land a little bit more. This opportunity again, Jeremiah, probably won't come again in my lifetime, or maybe it will, I don't know. Hopefully it would, but you never know. So we have to do the best we can to, enjoy this moment. We have to get everybody out and support the team because, again, it's a pretty big deal. I think in 2022, the final, really, really fond memories of playing here at home, 70,000 people. That was an epic night. And it was an accomplishment that I'm very proud of. The club's very proud of. And, we as Seattleites, guys that have, been around this franchise for a long time, understand those obligations or expectations. We work with them, Some teams might not have the same as us, but we're driven by winning. And it's not just maybe for me the particular competition, but just trying to make sure we're competitive in each one.
Hey, Craig. Brian talked about the quality of his assistant coaches. Now, I don't know anything, but are all your assistant coaches, do you have to negotiate, or because there's some open head coaching jobs? Are they all in the house?
We're interested in retaining our staff. Yeah, I mean that was one thing that Brian and I talked about during his contract. As we were finalizing his contract, was how we felt about the coaching staff, how he felt about his staff, and so we're in conversations with all of them. Again, I anticipate good results on all of them, but we have got some really good coaches, and so they will be targeted by other clubs as well for head coaching jobs. And so our job's to retain them and make this a better place as best we can until they get that opportunity. But at the same time, I know Brian feels the same way. If the right head coaching job comes up for one of our assistant coaches, we'll be the one driving them to the airport and shaking their hand, because part of our ecosystem, part of what we're building here is, Brian and I have positions that we'd love to be excellent in and hold on to as long as we possibly can. But we have a responsibility to everyone who's not in one of these leadership positions to keep their growth going and get them the opportunities they need. So our assistant coaches are highly desired across our league. And we will not prevent them from leaving, but we will do everything we can to retain them.
Fair enough. And Brian, this one's for you. It's a general question. You've both talked about bringing in a striker or two and changing your formation, two up, whatnot. What growth do you need to see from your midfield in general, not without each person, just in general on that final third?
It's a great question, Maz. I think goal scoring from that position needs to get better. Albert, you could say, is a midfielder technically, but, we need more. Christian has pitched in 5, 6, I think even 7 one year, maybe. We've had help there. We've had some, guys that had, JP has scored some really incredible goals from distance, and I think we'll work on some of that stuff once we get the final roster.
Lastly, Craig, you're pretty savvy with your the list of eligible players for the draft here, for the MLS.
Which one? Expand. We have like 6 drafts, so you have to be.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Specific.
The eligible player list revealed there.
For expansion.
Yeah, for expansion.
Specific to our team.
Yeah, it should be out now.
Well, the process is to the process that I go through is to basically try and make it a non-factor, and to get our list into a point where we're the one making decisions and we're not going to be impacted from the outside. But sometimes, and this was a good year where we've got enough guys that you can't protect everyone. And so sometimes sometimes you have to work a little bit on the side and work closely with San Diego to make sure you don't get guys taken if you don't want them taken. So we've got a good relationship with the San Diego front office. I've spoken to them several times over the last couple of days, and I'm confident we'll be retaining our team as is.
All right. Jose, thanks for your patience.
What were exiting interviews like, and from a player to coaching staff, front office staff? What are some of the things that you took as extremely positive coming out of those conversations?
I think we have different experiences. So we restructured the way we do this in the last couple of years. I meet with the players that are not going to be returning, that we're not exercising options on. I think that message is important to deliver face-to-face, eye-to-eye, and it should come from me. The coaching staff meets with all returning players in the immediacy. Obviously, availability is there. The players that meet with me are absolutely allowed and encouraged to interact with the coaching staff as well, and likewise, the players that meet with the coaches are encouraged to interact with me. But the feedback, that I received, I think the encouraging part is that the relationship, the way we treat players, is well known throughout our league. We treat them with honesty. And I know that sounds simple, but I think everyone in here is an adult. And when you're in a position where honesty isn't always fun, it's really hard to deliver. But that's part of the job that Brian and I take the most. We take the most serious is delivering good and bad news. And allowing people to react, allowing them to be adults with all the information. So in my interactions were professional. What I took from it, which I couldn't have asked more, was we got honest feedback from the players not returning about our organization, about how we can improve our organization, about how they felt. And the feedback was they felt great. They don't want to leave. And that's really encouraging. Does not mean we can change our opinion all the time or will, but we also got some constructive feedback about where we can improve, and we've already implemented some of it, to be honest, because some of it was highly impactful and needed to happen in the immediacy. So that was my experience, but I know Brian meets with a lot of the other players.
The feedback was overall positive. There's certain things that, yes, we can do better. They like certain things about the training environment, certain things they disliked, and it's just a learning process. It's good for you to reflect. The coaches, we all met with the players, and then we met with ourselves and all meet with different department heads just to get a feel for how they're feeling. It's just part of the structure of how we do things in the organization.
Time for one or two more. Felipe, do you still have one? Okay, Mike's coming. Nico, do you still have one?
Team and Coach Brian, your wish list. But what about the coaching staff that is behind it? Not your coach, your assistants, but the other part of the coaching staff that has to do with the fitness and with the with all these other elements to keep the players going. Is there anything new that you would like to see, or is there anything that you implemented in this season?
Greg's actually in charge of hiring and firing, but as far as I'm concerned, I think the performance staff, Adam Centofanti, is excellent. I think he's one of the best fitness guys in our league. I think our video analysis, John Elsenblath and Rodrigo, they are top-notch video guys. They sit with us in our meetings every single day. They do a lot of work. The medical staff, Chris Cornish and his staff, do an excellent job as well, keeping guys from getting injuries. That's their number one job, not, healing players. Actually, injury prevention is big on our list. So overall, I think, and Nolan, the equipment guys, they do a great job. They're unsung heroes in many respects, but they all have their part. They do it proudly. They do it for the players that they work with.
Speaking of the exiting interviews and things like that, Brian, I wanted to ask you, when you look back at this year and how Raul Ruidiaz's year went, someone who you spent so much time with and who you work with so long, do you have any regrets? Anything that you would have done differently this year with a player that's a legend and probably the best striker in franchise history?
No regrets. I certainly said what I needed to say to Raul. We ended with a hug and a smile. There are no regrets. I don't think there's any regrets from his side. You can ask him that question. But he was absolutely one of the best true goal scorers that we've had at this club. It's always hard to leave sometimes, you know, the last couple of years with Nico and then Raul. But it was also hard with Clint and Roman and Zach Scott and back in my day, Roger Levesque and some of those guys. It's always hard, but it is pro sports, and we have to understand that. Again, I'll say one last thing on Raul. Great human being, loves his family. I think that was part of his persona, his charm, always smiling. He had his bad days. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. He came in some days a little prickly, but deep down inside, he was a great human being.
Sure.
And just finally, when it comes to Leo Chu, what should we expect out of Leo Chu? I mean, he was kind of relegated beyond the bench and into the stands. You know, how do you pull him out of that mental basement that he's probably on?
So Leo had some ups and downs this year. I would say that at the end of the year, when he, you know, got on the field, he was in a better spot. He was down for a long time, but there again, Nico, that's pro sports. And sometimes those the hardships that you face in life, those are the transformative moments. And Leo's a great kid, you know, recently a new father. He has a nice family. So we have high hopes for him. I mean, he's a great kid and he worked hard. I can't say that, you know, at the end of the day, he didn't work hard. So that's always a plus in my book.